Hold on, we got him back in here. There he
You
is.
know, I'm doing this from my phone, as you can see. And
Yeah,
of
you're
course,
good.
the second we started, someone called in, so I just put on Do Not Disturb. Sorry about that.
No, you're good, man. No worries. I was just gonna ask you. A lot of the times, you don't get a chance to tell your side of the story. And I know we know a lot of your background and a lot of the celebrities and high profile cases that you've done, but I really want to hear from you. What's your story? What drives you? What got you into law in the first place? And maybe what's a case that you represented in the past that really changed things for you personally?
I mean, it's funny. My parents come from Italy, so we grew up pretty humble beginnings. I grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn. If any of you are from Brooklyn, Brownsville's not exactly the Beverly Hills of New York City. It's a rough and tumble area. It still is. Mike Tyson grew up a couple blocks away from me. And Brownsville's still Brownsville. We moved eventually to Flatbush. But so I grew up in the School of Hard Knocks. Had a bunch of fights, getting my way to school before I even was 10 years old. So it gave me a little grit, a little mental toughness, a little physical toughness that I've carried with me to this day. It helps me in court. Um, and then, I just started, I was in college, I was a player, I was an athlete. So I went from a New York State wrestling champion to a football player to a hockey player. I had a hockey scholarship in college, and I thought I was going to be an NHL player. That's what my dream was. But didn't quite work out that way. But what happened was, I was in a debate class, and in my debate class, there was a teacher who told me basically, and I was a decent student, but my focus was on sports. My debate
Mm-hmm.
teacher said, you should be a trial lawyer. You're really good oratorically, and you're very good at arguing. I said, a trial lawyer? I said, no one in my family graduated college, let alone law school.
Yeah.
But he pushed me, and I read a book, and the book I read was called Fatal Vision by Joe McGinnis. Joe
Mm.
McGinnis is a true crime author, and he wrote this book called Fatal Vision about a true crime story of a Green Beret sergeant in Fayetteville, North Carolina, in the '70s. He was a Green Beret sergeant who killed his wife and kids in their home. He claimed it
Oh
was done
wow.
by hippies, and he was a surgeon, so they looked for drugs, and everyone believed him. And for the first 2 years, he was a victim, and they were, then all of a sudden his behavior was a little odd, and the parents who first believed that their son-in-law was innocent now all of a sudden were on a mission. And this whole book was about the twists and turns of an investigation and then the trial. And the trial was like something that captivated me. It was like one page I'd read, I'd be, oh my God, this guy's guilty. The next page I'd read, I said, oh my God, he's innocent. He's guilty. He's innocent. I
Yeah.
was like, this is what I want to do. This is the stuff. That's my dopamine. And so that's it. I started down that journey. I became a prosecutor first because everyone told me the best way. I always wanted to be a defense attorney. I always wanted to be a trial lawyer.
Yeah.
But the best way to do that is to start out as a prosecutor because you learn what the other side thinks, how they process. So I was a prosecutor for quite a amount of years, and prosecuting cases. I became one of the deputy chiefs of homicide in the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office at some point, and away I went, and
Wow.
then I started doing defense work.
So is there along your journey up into the point where you're at now? I mean, obviously, other than the recent cases that you had with Donald Trump and ASAP Rocky, was there a case that really stuck out to you as something that really you would say was a milestone trial for you that stuck in your memory?
Eric, it's really hard to do it like that, but I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Look, I've done a lot of civil trials too, so, but those are
Yeah.
about money and property and things that are replaceable. Liberty is not
Yeah.
replaceable. Someone's life is not replaceable. So it has to go. It's definitely one of the criminal cases, right? But I got to tell you, I was trying to think of when you asked that, I was trying to think of which one has the most impact. But when I harken back, I mean, for each case, those families, it was the most important case for them. I had a shaken baby death case that no one said we could win. That people were telling this guy to take a plea. He was completely innocent. Shaken baby
Wow.
syndrome is junk science. This guy had been
Yeah.
indicted for killing his 7-week-old baby for shaking him. It was based on, it was conclusion by exclusion. They couldn't figure out another way. What they did miss was a hematoma at birth in the brain. Anyway,
Mm.
long story short is that case was personally like devastating to me because he had two young children. His wife was behind him. His name is Kevin Holloway. It was a case, very well known case in New York, and he was acquitted. Ultimately, he was acquitted, found not guilty. But that case would have ripped me apart if he were convicted, because he was innocent, and he couldn't even mourn the loss of his baby because he was indicted. The family was ripped apart. He couldn't even see his little babies. They're back together now. They're doing better than ever, which makes that's one of the reasons I went to law school. Cases like that. There's another case of a gym teacher in Long Island. This is now dating back 15, 18 years ago, even 20, where this guy was accused of molesting 9 girls in his gym class.
Mm.
Eric, I tell you, if he had done it, honestly, that would have been one of the cases where I would have been like uncomfortable taking. No, everyone's entitled. Everyone is entitled to a defense. Okay.
Yes.
And honestly, it's a sign of character integrity of a defense lawyer to represent the most despised in our society. It really is. But there are some cases that are not for me. If I thought he was a really a pedophile, sex abuser, I wouldn't have taken the case because my heart wouldn't have been in it. I knew this guy was innocent, but one scary trial was to go against 9 little girls crying, claiming sexual abuse, and it wasn't sex; it was just fondling, stuff like that, in an open gym classroom. Long story short is, I swear to God, this guy was innocent. But
Hmm.
everyone was telling, those other lawyers telling him to take a plea, 7 years in jail, registered sex offender, and he wouldn't do it. He was innocent. He had 2 kids. He was a football coach. He was a rough and tumble guy, and he was just scared to death. But he wouldn't take a plea. They were offering him a misdemeanor plea and 30 days in jail. Think about that. He's either the biggest monster of
Sheesh.
all time, right? Think about it, Eric.
Right.
He's either the biggest monster of all time, where he should never see the light of day again, if you believe he's guilty, or he's innocent. There's no, here's a misdemeanor and 30 days in jail. I mean, what kind of bullshit is that? Because to me, that showed me they didn't even believe in their own case. Long story short, we went to trial. It was horrifying, because had this guy gotten convicted, I really would have rethought my career path. I really would have.
Yeah.
This is a long time ago. Fortunately, he was found not guilty. And every day on June 19th, every year, I should say, on June 19th, for 20 years, that family writes me the most beautiful letter, like a
That's
new
awesome.
letter every year, the most touching, bro. It's They send me pictures of their kids who were babies then, now they're in college.
Yeah.
And that really touches me deeply. And that's the stuff that gives me the fuel and the passion to go on. Because when I represent someone, Eric, I don't represent them as a client. I don't even think of them as a client. They become family. They have to,
Yeah.
because I take it very personally. I have to take it. You saw this last trial. Finally, there was a
We
televised
saw
trial
it.
of
Yeah.
mine. You saw it.
Yeah.
I took that person, that prosecutor, I was going to eat him. Like, because he was so, in my opinion, so dirty, so underhanded, so unethical. He did things in
Yes.
that case that blew me away. I've never, in 120, I have 120 jury trials. I've never seen anything happen like I saw in that case. And I took it very personally, because when I'm representing someone in a fight for basically their life, their liberty, of course, not a death penalty case, but their liberty is their life,
Yeah.
I treat them like a brother. So,